What if I told you that one of America's most famous billionaires once slept on the floor of a six-person apartment, eating mustard and ketchup sandwiches just to survive? What if I told you this same man was fired from multiple jobs before he turned 30? And what if I told you that, despite all these setbacks, he would go on to sell a company for nearly $6 billion and become the owner of an NBA team? This isn't a fairy tale. This is the real story of Mark Cuban, a man who proved that, with enough determination, creativity, and willingness to learn from failure, anyone can build an empire from nothing. Today, we're diving deep into the incredible journey of Mark Cuban, from his humble beginnings in Pittsburgh to becoming one of the most recognizable entrepreneurs in the world. Get ready to discover how an ordinary kid with big dreams transformed himself into a business legend, and more importantly, what you can learn from his remarkable story. Mark Cuban was born on July 31, 1958 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His father, Norton, worked as an automobile upholsterer, while his mother, Shirley, held various jobs to help support the family. The Cubans weren't wealthy by any means, but they instilled something invaluable in young Mark: the belief that hard work could open any door. Even as a child, Cuban showed signs of the entrepreneur he would become. At just 12 years old, he had his first taste of business when he went door-to-door selling garbage bags to earn money for a pair of expensive basketball shoes his parents couldn't afford. This wasn't just a kid doing chores for allowance. This was a young mind already thinking about creating value and solving problems. During high school, Cuban's entrepreneurial spirit continued to grow. He started a stamp and coin business, recognizing that collectors would pay premium prices for rare items. He also gave disco dancing lessons, capitalizing on the dance craze of the 1970s. While other teenagers were focused solely on school and friends, Cuban was learning the fundamentals of business: finding customers, delivering value, and making a profit. But perhaps the most telling story from his youth happened when he was 16. Cuban convinced his high school to let him take classes at the University of Pittsburgh. Instead of sitting through courses he found too easy. This wasn't just about getting ahead academically, it showed his lifelong pattern of challenging the status quo and finding creative solutions to problems. Cuban enrolled at Indiana University, not because it was the most prestigious school, but because it offered the best value for his money, a decision that would reflect his practical approach to business throughout his life. To pay for college, he gave disco lessons, sold chain letters, and even organized parties. After graduating with a degree in business in 1981, Cuban moved to Dallas with big dreams and little money. He had about $60 in his pocket and no job lined up. His first apartment was a disaster. He shared a 3-bedroom place with 5 other guys, and his bedroom was actually the living room where he slept on the floor. His first job in Dallas was as a salesperson for a computer software company called Your Business Software. Cuban threw himself into learning everything he could about computers and software, often staying late to read technical manuals and understand the products inside and out. But his dedication wasn't appreciated by everyone. In 1983, something happened that would change Cuban's life forever, though he didn't realize it at the time. He was fired from his sales job. The reason? Instead of opening the store one morning, he had gone to close a deal with a client, prioritizing a $15,000 sale over following company protocol. Most people would see getting fired as a failure, a step backward, but Cuban saw it differently. Years later, he would call it the best thing that ever happened to him. Why? Because it forced him to bet on himself. Being fired lit a fire under Cuban. He realized that if he was going to succeed, he couldn't rely on someone else giving him opportunities. He had to create them himself. With his severance pay and $500 in savings, Cuban started his own company in 1983, Micro Solutions. The company specialized in computer consulting and software reselling, helping small businesses navigate the confusing world of early personal computers. But starting a business with almost no money meant every decision was critical. Cuban worked out of a small apartment, answering phones, making sales calls, and even doing technical installations himself. He ate peanut butter sandwiches for months and drove a beat-up car, but he was building something that was entirely his. The early days were tough. Cuban made countless mistakes, lost potential clients, and struggled to compete with larger, established companies. There were nights when he wondered if he had made the right choice leaving the security of a regular job. But Cuban had something many entrepreneurs lack. He was obsessed with learning. He read every technology magazine he could find, attended industry conferences even when he couldn't afford them, and constantly studied his competitors. This knowledge became his competitive advantage. Slowly but surely, micro-solutions began to grow. Cuban's deep understanding of both technology and business helped him solve problems that other consultants couldn't handle. Word spread, and bigger clients started calling. By 1990, Micro Solutions had grown into a multi-million-dollar company with dozens of employees. Cuban had successfully built his first business empire, but he wasn't content to just manage what he had created. He wanted to swing for the fences. That year, he sold Micro Solutions to CompuServe for $6 million. After taxes and splitting the proceeds with investors and employees, Cuban walked away with about $2 million, his first real taste of serious wealth. But here's what makes Cuban special. Instead of buying a mansion and retiring young, he saw this success as just the beginning. He had learned that he could build valuable companies, and now he had the capital to think even bigger. In the early 1990s, Cuban became fascinated by something most people had never heard of: the internet. While others saw it as a curiosity for computer geeks, Cuban recognized its massive potential to change how people consumed media and entertainment. In 1995, Cuban teamed up with fellow Indiana University graduate Todd Wagner to start AudioNet, which would later become Broadcast.com. The concept was revolutionary for its time, streaming audio and video content over the internet. Most people thought they were crazy. The internet was slow, streaming technology was primitive, and few people saw the potential for online media. Cuban and Wagner faced constant skepticism from investors, media companies, and even potential customers. But Cuban had learned to trust his instincts. He could see the future coming, even when others couldn't. He invested everything he had into making Broadcast.com a success, often working 20-hour days and sleeping in the office. The company started small, streaming local college basketball games and radio shows. But as internet speeds improved and more people came online, Broadcast.com's audience exploded. They began streaming major sporting events, concerts, and news programs to hundreds of thousands of viewers. By 1999, Broadcast.com had become one of the internet's most popular destinations for streaming media. The timing couldn't have been better. The dot-com boom was in full swing, and investors were throwing money at any internet company with potential. Cuban knew that the internet bubble wouldn't last forever, so when Yahoo offered to buy Broadcast.com for $5.7 billion in stock, he didn't hesitate. The deal made Cuban and Wagner instant billionaires. But Cuban did something most people in his position wouldn't do. He immediately sold most of his Yahoo stock and diversified his wealth. While many dot-com millionaires held onto their stock and lost everything when the bubble burst, Cuban preserved his fortune by thinking strategically about risk. At 40 years old, Mark Cuban had gone from sleeping on floors and eating ketchup sandwiches to becoming one of the youngest billionaires in America. In 2000, Cuban made a purchase that would define the next phase of his life. He bought the Dallas Mavericks basketball team for $285 million. The Mavericks were struggling both on and off the court, with poor performance and declining attendance. Cuban didn't just want to own a team, he wanted to revolutionize the entire fan experience. He upgraded the arena, improved customer service, and brought the same innovative thinking that had made him successful in technology to professional sports. More famously, Cuban became known for his passionate sideline behavior. He cheered, argued with referees, and showed the kind of emotional investment that energized both players and fans. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Mavericks games became must-see events in Dallas. The investment paid off in 2011 when the Mavericks won their first NBA championship, defeating the favored Miami Heat. For Cuban, it was validation that his approach to business, caring deeply, investing in people, and never accepting mediocrity, could succeed in any industry. In 2011, Cuban joined the hit TV show Shark Tank as one of the investor sharks. The show gave him a platform to share his business expertise while discovering and funding the next generation of entrepreneurs. On Shark Tank, Cuban has invested millions of dollars in dozens of companies, from tech startups to consumer products. But more than the money, he's shared his knowledge and experience with thousands of aspiring entrepreneurs who watch the show. Cuban's approach on Shark Tank reflects his core business philosophy. He looks for passionate entrepreneurs who deeply understand their market and are willing to work harder than anyone else. He often says that he'd rather invest in someone with average ideas but exceptional execution than someone with great ideas but poor follow-through. So what can we learn from Mark Cuban's incredible story? First, that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's a stepping stone to success. Cuban was fired, made countless mistakes, and faced rejection after rejection. But he never let these setbacks define him. Second, Cuban shows us the power of continuous learning. Whether he was reading computer manuals late at night or studying internet technology before most people knew what it was, Cuban always stayed ahead by staying curious. Third, Cuban proves that timing matters, but preparation matters more. He didn't just get lucky with the internet boom, he positioned himself to take advantage of it by building expertise and taking calculated risks. Finally, Cuban demonstrates that success isn't just about making money, it's about making a difference. From revolutionizing the fan experience with the Mavericks to mentoring entrepreneurs on Shark Tank, Cuban uses his success to create value for others. Mark Cuban's story proves that in America and anywhere in the world, extraordinary success is possible for anyone willing to work for it. He wasn't born wealthy, didn't attend an Ivy League school, and didn't have family connections to open doors for him. What Cuban had was something much more powerful, an unshakable belief in his ability to learn, adapt, and create value for others. He turned getting fired into motivation, transformed his mistakes into lessons, and converted his failures into fuel for future success. Today, as you face your own challenges and pursue your own dreams, remember Mark Cuban's journey. Remember that every successful entrepreneur started somewhere, often with nothing more than an idea and the determination to make it work. Your background doesn't determine your future. Your current situation doesn't define your potential. What matters is what you do next, how hard you're willing to work, and how much you're willing to learn along the way. So whatever your dream is, whether it's starting a business, changing careers, or simply improving your life, take inspiration from Mark Cuban's story. Start where you are, use what you have, and never stop believing in your ability to create something extraordinary. Because if a kid from Pittsburgh who once slept on floors and ate mustard sandwiches can become a billionaire, imagine what you can accomplish when you put your mind to it. The only question left is, what are you waiting for?